what tomorrow brings. So let's discuss the BS, but don't get carried away.
It's been too long,
It's a new
homie.
day and a new me. I said it's a new day and a new me.
Ain't lying.
I was asked if I could do a creative thinking workshop at the Diversity Symposium at work for the People with Disabilities Network. And I had been a member of the People with Disabilities Network, but I had never shared why. I kind of just sat back and observed from a distance to make sure it was safe for me to share, because I'm a learning leader, and it's kind of ironic that you have a learning leader with a severe learning disability or difference. And I didn't want it to kind of block my progression. So I was having a conversation with the lady that asked me, and I said, okay, let me tell you a little bit about myself, because if I'm gonna do this, I wanna do it right. I had started to get emotional because I had hid this for so long, and it's so deep down core of who I am, but I've never shared it. So I feel like I've been hiding a major part of me.
Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. It is characterized by difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. Dyslexia affects as much as 20% of the population. The impact that dyslexia has is different for each person and depends on the severity of the condition and the effectiveness of remediation.
Some of the signs of dyslexia and what that kind of looks like, usually those students are identified when they are in kindergarten or preschool and they're having difficulties with phonemic awareness, recognizing what the sounds in words are. Because we start working on those things in kindergarten, that's usually when it's diagnosed. And sometimes it isn't picked up until later on in high school.
At an early age, I just thought, I don't know, there was no label for it, but I knew I just had attention deficit, right? Like it was, it was like, man, teachers would like, he's fine, he's a really great student, but he goes off into his own world and he kind of does his own thing.
All the reading classes, history, I struggled, but just because my mother was a teacher there, the teachers would make an extra effort to help me in those classes.
I remember being in the hallway with the teacher and you, and we were talking, and then you just burst out in tears and ran up to me and said, I miss you. I don't want to go to school.
Children that are dyslexic get it. They're smart enough to know, I am not getting this like other people in the class are. This is causing me grief and effort and strain, and I don't understand why.
There was this level of anxiety that it took me so much longer to take a test than everyone else. I was like, either they're guessing or they're like super smart and I'm just an idiot. And I just got freaked out by tests, mainly because I was embarrassed by how long it took me. Less of that I didn't know the content. It was just like, why is this taking me so long?
What would you rather have more of? Because 40% of self-made millionaires have dyslexia. 40 to 50% of prisoners have dyslexia.
I was headed down the wrong path until teachers helped me.
There were several times I was headed down the wrong path, and the one person that I always go to is my dad.
My high school science teacher pulled me off the wrong path by giving me two options. See, I'd played a practical joke the day before and I took it too far. He pulled me into the hallway and he said, option one, use the creativity skills and leadership skills that you demonstrated in that practical joke and put them to good use. And option two was he'd expel me. If you don't help dyslexic kids be better, do better, read, it's going to end up with prisoners. If you help dyslexic kids to read and you help dyslexic kids to get through schools, then they're going to be those self-made millionaires. What would you rather have more of? I always had to reteach myself everything I knew and look at it from 7 different perspectives until it clicked and it made sense.
I knew that me to read a book and sit down and read like a chapter was probably 2-3 times longer than someone else who could just read it. And I was like, I don't want to spend 3 hours when it takes someone else 30 minutes. I would find combinations of things. If I watch the movie, I read the Cliff Notes, and I read the last chapter and the first chapter, then I should be able to get a C. And that's what I did. And that's kind of how I got through high school and large part college.
I love coming in at the beginning stage of schematic brainstorming, because that's when the ADHD, I let it fly and do its thing. You just go from thought to thought that is related, and you end up somewhere loosely related from where you started, but still pertinent, and you may have found solutions along the way.
When I look at things from a different perspective and a different angle, I'm like, wait, if we look at it from this way, we can maximize the profit, we can minimize the risk.
It's the perfect job or task for someone that's neurodivergent, because they're able to quickly switch left to right and see the future.
You don't live in a box. There is no box when you're dyslexic.
Dyslexic strengths for core work skills of the future include visualizing, imagining, communicating, exploring, connecting, and reasoning.
I can teach creative thinking to people. I actually went back to school and got my master's degree in design management from SCAD, and my concentration was instructional design on how do I take all these artistic and abstract tools and methodologies that they're teaching us in design school and apply that back to corporate everybody.
Dyslexics bring something to the table, something that this world needs and really what we should want. And many, many businesses are discovering that.
We are ecstatic that a guy like Josh, with a background in learning and development, and was already coming from the inside from our corporate learning and development group, was excited and willing to come join us on that journey and sort of start from scratch and develop a marketing curriculum.
And I think when you have hidden disabilities, there are people who don't want that support, right? So, you know, let's just say I may identify it, but I have to be respectful enough to, one, ask, wait for them to, well, there's two things, either wait for them to talk to me about it, or two, ask them if I can provide any kind of support respectfully, right?
When I was in the government, I definitely hit it. I don't know what the word is for it, but it's, you want to almost show no weakness. As I got out of the federal government and went into like financial institutions, I probably still hit it, probably up until like 5-6 years ago.
I've worked for 4 different Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 200 companies, and it was only through PDN, People with Disabilities Network, that I was finally comfortable to share at work that I have dyslexia.
When Josh shared his story at a PDN kickoff, only thing I could say is we were passing the tissue box. It was heartfelt, it was authentic, and it was very brave of him. And it was in a time where I think we were all very grateful, because what that did is that it opened up others to tell their story.
I know the freedom that it gave me, so I'm hoping that they feel the same freedom that I felt from sharing.
I've definitely felt alone in my journey with ADHD, and I've never, to the point where I've never felt comfortable sharing it until Josh was my manager. And it was just something that I kept buried deep down. I tried medication and I felt I lost a large part of who I was as a person. And so I stopped taking it. It was just something that I dealt with silently and avoided, and didn't want to bring to the surface. I didn't want it to define me. And really, leveraging Josh and his experience to help manage that, I think together we did a really good job of that.
So as a kid where I couldn't read that well, I turn to comic books. Dyslexics have great visual minds, and I loved all the visuals in the comics, and because I could understand the story and what's going on without having to read anything. If you want a different way of looking at dyslexia and how it feels and how it looks and be entertained at the same time, watch an X-Men movie. Because how those mutant kids feel and are treated by society is a lot how I felt and how I felt I was treated by society when I was diagnosed with dyslexia. And luckily for me, I was able to turn it into a superpower.
For parents, I say, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. Congratulations, you have a dyslexic child. Their brains are meant for the world. They're so bright, they're so innovative, they're so creative, they think outside the box.
When you're testing like an application, or you're looking at cyber intel, or you're looking at data sets to find sort of anomalies and other things, they seem to find those glitches faster. They run through because maybe they see the pattern in a different way and they're not focused on like the every bit and the every byte. So like debugging software, understanding flaws in software, just recognizing patterns is really unique.
You're able to think of these solutions that won't work. You're actually clairvoyant in the design process when you're thinking of everything that can go right and everything that can go wrong. You're problem solving in seeing where a design that may look great right now could potentially not work in the future or for what this person wants.
I can approach dyslexia now with a sense of pride, and if anybody questions that, I can tell them a million different ways how it's helped benefit my life.
Neurodiversity folks, right, understand the challenges when someone doesn't get something and almost automatically can put themselves in that person's shoes. We leverage empathy in ways that maybe others don't because of our situation. And then it's easier for us to get there, right, with them, right? Where others people might go, they just don't get it, so I'll just move on to someone else that does.
I've seen so many kids come through the doors and go on to be successful. It is astounding.
Only have expectations for yourself and do your best to live up to those expectations and fulfill those commitments to yourself.
I want to reframe how people think about it. If you embrace your strengths and your superpowers, there is no limit. You think differently, and that's fantastic. You have a diversity of thought, and that's fantastic. You know how to overcome obstacles, and that's fantastic. Everything that has been a struggle in your life, or everything that will be a struggle in your life, is only preparing you to be that much more successful and to conquer the world that much greater in the future.
If you, your child, your students, or your employees are blessed with dyslexia, here's how to help. Become an advocate, share this video, teach anyone willing to listen the basics of dyslexia, and participate in facilitated neurodiversity workshops. Also, understand the same reasons it's hard to read and write, become intertwined with why it's hard to make friends, feel understood, please others, and make good decisions. And if you're a neurodivergent person, first, know yourself. Know what you're good at, and know where you seem to run into problems, besides reading and writing. Most important, know what help others can provide that's best for you, and then tell them. Do not be ashamed, even though so many people along the way may have shamed you. Be empowered with knowledge, because it is your responsibility to help build the world you seek to live in. As Maya Angelou said, when people know better, they do better.